Well, you better not share anything about the Nord Stream pipeline on Facebook if you don't want to be put in Facebook jail, because Facebook is deciding that the United States had nothing to do with the explosion of the Nord Stream pipeline. And if you share that, you're going to get a demerit, or they will at least block it or censor it. And we're going to show you exactly how. Have you ever been put in Facebook jail?
Oh, I've definitely had Facebook posts taken down and blocked over the time. Yeah. But I don't even use Facebook anymore. So I think
it's very random. David, I'm sure you've.
I walked away. Yes, I walked away from Facebook. Yeah. David's on Facebook. I walked away from Facebook about 4 years ago. I think if you actually go to my profile and look, I think my last post that wasn't just saying thank you for somebody wishing me happy birthday was probably 5-6 years ago. Easy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I only sort of post stuff on Instagram sometimes and then it gets pushed over. But I'm sure David's got a lot of stories about being blocked on Facebook. Sure. All right. Well, we're going to talk about this story. So journalist and author Michael Shellenberger found that Facebook is censoring the damning article from journalist Seymour Hersh that accuses the U.S. of blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline. We've covered this at length. I'm just going to sum it up quick. Hersh is saying that he spoke to inside sources that told him that the U.S. Navy was asked by President Biden to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline between Russia and Germany, and that Biden used the Navy with the help from Norway to do it so that he could keep from having to seek congressional approval for this act of international sabotage. So that's the gist. Facebook does not want you to say that. Seymour Hersh has an excellent track record, by the way, for exposing the military-industrial complex going back to the first Iraq War. But Facebook doesn't want his reporting shared. They are censoring this story. Here's a video that Michael Shellenberger posted just today because he tried to share this video. I'm going to talk over it because it's just kind of, you do hear him like sort of coughing in the background, but he doesn't speak. So let's go ahead and roll it. So here he says, you know, we've heard a rumor that Facebook is censoring this article. So he tries to share it himself. So here's a link to the article that we've discussed at length. He tries to share it. And then if you look, what happens is that he goes down and he shows that it's been blocked, and it says false information checked by independent fact checkers. So when he pushes forward to see why, it says, no, this has been fact checked, and it gives him this link. The link we're going to talk about further at further length, but it is an article that is so-called debunking this, and we're going to go over exactly why. Now, we have covered why we here do put stock in the Seymour Hersh report, but let's just suspend that conviction for a minute and pretend we don't know, and this is neutral reporting, and we would just like to be informed citizens and consider it for ourselves. Why is Facebook saying you shouldn't? Why are they making this decision to censor this piece of information? And who is Facebook relying on to fact check this story? Is it someone with more credibility and a better track record than Seymour Hersh? The who bit is really important because the fact checker that Facebook relies on for the final word here is the Norwegian public broadcaster NRK. On March 14th, the organization reprinted an article by this site, FAKTISK, so Faktisk.no. It's a media watchdog which counts the Norwegian public broadcaster NRK among its partners. So here is an English translation that I took a screenshot from. I did read through it. There are a few reasons that the article claims to debunk Hersh's reporting. One is that the map that Hersh shows of Norwegian naval bases is wrong. Only he said so. Take a look. This is from his page. It says there, map is not exact. So they're saying, oh, you put up this map of, naval base. It's a graphic. It's basically just a graphical breakup of your story. They also go into detail about why the ships that Hersh claimed were involved in this sabotage were not actually in the places they needed to be when this took place. So, I'm not going to go through it point by point, but they also say, just sort of point blank, that the Norwegian government has denied that they had anything to do with it. So there you go. That Norway didn't do it because Norway said they didn't do it.
Sorry, but is it like calling them out saying, well, this has been fact checked to be incorrect because because the map wasn't right. That's like saying, well, this information is completely false because you used the wrong your. You used Y-O-U-R rather than Y-O-U-R-E. Yeah.
Right. It has to all that's ridiculous. Be.
Well, they've done the same thing with Matt Taibbi in the Twitter files, right? Because he had there was some slight misuse of one word. They were like, well, you see, he should be better than that. He shouldn't make any mistakes.
Okay.
Then he corrected it almost immediately.
Well, they're actually talking about filing charges on him from the Medi interview on Matt Taibbi.
Yeah. Just for making one mistake. I mean, so we have to throw the whole...
really turned out to not even be a mistake.
So he has a map. By the way, every map we had growing up in school was all fake, right? Like, you know, all the maps that were hanging up in your social studies rooms about the size of the United States versus the size of Africa, like it was always proportional. Like they're all...
Okay.
Those were all fake anyway, like proportionally.
Yeah. Okay. And, you know, I can't sort of say were the ships in the right place, like play this battleship game of like who's right and who's wrong. So I'm deciding not to do that. We need an expert to do that. That's got a lot more time than I. But again, their claim that, well, Norway denied having an involvement, so that's the final word. You know, that's kind of a bad faith argument because Norway is being accused, right? And so you don't just accept the accused word for it, and that's the end of it. And Hersh gives a reason why Norway was involved in this. So, of course, Norway would say this. Here is how Hersh explained why Norway would partner up with the U.S. to do this in the first place, saying that back in Washington, partners, including Biden and his troops, knew they had to go to Norway because they hated the Russians. I don't know if that's past tense, actually. And the Norwegian Navy was full of superb sailors and divers who had generations of experience in highly profitable deep sea oil and gas exploration, the source said. And they could be trusted to keep the mission secrets. Well, is that what they're doing right now? Is continuing to keep that secret by denying that they did it? The Norwegians may have had other interests as well. The destruction of the Nord Stream, if Americans could pull it off, would allow Norway to sell vastly more of its own natural gas to Europe. That ended up happening. Now, Hersh also says that the Norwegian Navy has a long and murky history of cooperation with American intelligence, and that begun over 6 decades ago and led into the Vietnam War. Here's a screenshot of his explanation where he talks about how Norway had these boats that were known as Nasty class for their powerful gunnery, and some of them were sold to the U.S. Navy. So we know, like, there's something worth sniffing at here. Well, now Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland are all saying that Russia is using ghost ships to monitor the Baltic Sea and make sure no more explosive events happen. There's a new documentary in these countries that is saying that by ghost ships, they mean non-military ships are tracking and monitoring things and then sending that data back to the Kremlin. Watch how Euronews explains this sort of Russian monitoring that they just don't like. And so they're calling it kind of a bunch of ne'er-do-wells floating around this area. Watch.
Russia is using civilian vessels in the Nordic Sea to survey and spy on key infrastructure. That's according to a new report produced collectively by Sweden, Denmark, Norway and Finland's national broadcasters. The team used traffic shipping data, radio communication surveillance and sources in the security services to verify the report.
Det är ju allvarligt för det visar ju på en intention att underrättelseinhämta på ett väldigt offensivt sätt och att kartlägga saker som är oerhört viktiga för Sverige och för Sveriges funktion som samhälle.
Sweden's military is aware of this kind of activity but says it has limited legal options to react as the ships are still allowed to move freely.
Ja, men det är ju en gråzon att man kan använda civil verksamhet för att inhämta militära kunskaper. Det är någonting som vi tränar oss på att skydda oss mot. Vi noterar alltid deras närvaro och anpassar vår verksamhet efter det.
Around 50 non-military vessels are being used for Russian espionage activities. The Nordic journalist revealed that the monitored boats have sailed past oil and gas pipelines and other critical infrastructure. In some cases, boats were tracked to have sailed close to both NATO and national military exercises.
Okay, so they're saying that they're gathering intelligence in an offensive way. I'm not sure what I make of that. It's like they have people doing research and they're surveying and also like kind of looking out to see if anybody else bombs anything else. And that's offensive.
Well, I'm pretty sure the official way to ask for like secret information is like, pardon me, sir, but may I borrow some of your secret information that I might use in my government? You know, like, jolly good. I don't know why you had to be so British in that.
Boats.
Right. It's, you know, it's hilarious. Like they're looking through their binoculars, but they're also like the one eye is through a binocular, but the other eye is like looking over here
or
at
like
this computer.
Reading a newspaper upside down, you know, and
getting information like 1950s.
Or with like holes cut
sitting
out.
on a bench. Right. Sitting on a park bench.
It was really offensive how he was gathering his information.
But this sort of idea of gathering information, well, we don't know what that means because we thought this, you know, we didn't think this, but people thought the spy balloon was gathering information, and it very well could have been scientific information. That is just what scientists do. This could be the same. And so, you know, now we're sort of weaponizing this idea of intelligence gathering when they could be counting fishing populations for all we know. We don't know what this is. They just said this quote, and maybe it's just a translation from this news service, but gather intelligence in an offensive way. Like, did I just read that?
That sounds like it.
I mean, that's what espionage is. That's like all intelligence gathering. There's literally nobody doing it in a non-offensive, polite way. How can you?
Yeah.
You know, it's like
good point.
That's the whole idea behind it.
Yeah.
Like, congratulations, Norway, you figured out what espionage is.
But also, what if they are just sort of, you know, have asked other, you know, citizens in sort of the Dunkirk kind of way? That's the whole premise of that movie. Right. Is like using civilian ships to like accomplish something for their country. I'm not saying this is on the level with Dunkirk, but at the same time, what if they are sort of saying, hey, if you see anybody else out there trying to bomb our shit, you know, can you let the government know? Like, if you see something, say something, like you see on the subway. Is that sabotage or espionage? We don't know.
Yeah, does it rise to the level of like helping your nation, right? Like Dunkirk. Yeah, you know, we need every fishing vessel, every able-bodied person right now with a fishing vessel, come help get your breath, you know, get your men off the beaches of Dunkirk. They're about to be slaughtered. We need to get them home now, you know.
Yeah. Clearly but that was using, you know, non-military equipment and vessels in order to accomplish something for the country. So, if, you know, you could make the argument that this is something that the government is saying, hey, any Russian vessels that are out there, if you see anything like this, please let us know. And they're just like, yeah, like literally like in the subway, these, you know, if you see something, say something, placards, here's how to let the government know if you see any of this again. You know, and then for us to call this sabotage, it's just, there's a lot of holes in that. And look, maybe one of these Baltic countries did help the U.S. sabotage this pipeline, and maybe they didn't. But another important question to circle back around is, does Facebook give one side the final say? I don't think that's right. And Facebook has said that they don't want to be the arbiters of truth. So why then give the U.S. government the pass here and censor something that's unfavorable towards the government? This is what Schellenberger is calling a piece of... Yeah, go ahead, David.
Well, I just wanted to say I have a friend, Ben, who did some articles on Facebook and was fact-checked, and he went back with citing his evidence, and his evidence was more thorough than theirs, but they still went with the fact-checker. So it doesn't even matter that you're... I mean, and even in that article, it said award-winning journalist Seymour Hersh. Like, they gave him praise, but then they're like, but he's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Pulitzer Prize winning. Right.
Well, we saw this with COVIDism. We know that the truth is not a data point.
Yeah.
When there is what Michael Schellenberger is calling the censorship industrial complex. So we can add that to the other industrial complexes that are not in the public interest. So we have military, biopharmaceutical, homeless industrial complex, and now we have censorship industrial complex. We see that through the Twitter files. You know, we will continue to see it. Here's how he describes it. And he does have an association where he's trying to fight it. So listen, I'll let him say it for himself.
I speak to you today about an extremely grave issue. Over the last several months, my colleagues and I have discovered the existence of a censorship industrial complex, which consists of US and other government agencies, private sector think tanks, and academic institutions that are working together to spy on and censor ordinary citizens for constitutionally protected speech online. We can't do this work alone. We need to hear directly from you if you work for the US Government Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the Atlantic Council, the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, Graphica, Stanford Internet Observatory, University of Washington, Center for American Progress, or the Center for Countering Digital Hate Online, or any other organization that claims to be fighting misinformation, disinformation, or fighting online hate. These organizations are threatening the very foundation of our democracy and our freedom. We've assembled a world-class legal team to protect whistleblowers, and we will do everything in our power to protect you and others that come forward with vital information. We can't do this work alone. Please, you may email me on my encrypted email, michaelschellenberger@proton.me. I look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Well, let us know what you think. Is this something that Facebook should be getting involved with, or is this something you should have as a Facebook user the right to see? And do you think that the censorship industrial complex is just as serious as the other industrial complexes? I do. But I'd like to hear from you.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.